Hey everyone, I'm your host, Quinn Magnuson. Welcome to the EOR podcast, the show for leaders, high performers, and the secrets to grit, growth, and greatness. I want to ask you something. Are you an organization looking to build a rock-solid strategy that will grow your people and end up in increased productivity and profitability? Then I invite you to start by going over to our website, effortoverresults.com, and book your free strategy call directly with me. No obligation, no bots or sticky email campaigns, just a friendly one-to-one call so I can learn more about you and your team goals. So if you're ready to get real, go over to effortoverresults.com, book your free call today. And now, let's get back to the show. Today on the EOR podcast, our guest is someone who does not just talk leadership, he embodies it. David Prosper is a speaker, author, and host of Clarity with David Prosper, a top-rated self-improvement podcast helping people cut through the noise and lead with purpose. Known as the Clarity Architect, David helps leaders find peace, purpose, and prosperity in their work and life. Get ready, because this conversation is about to sharpen your focus and shake up how you define success. David Prosper, welcome to the EOR podcast. Let's go. Really excited about today's episode. David Prosper is with us, and him and I have had this discussion. He prefers to be called by his last name, Prosper. I love that. I will call you whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. So we're gonna go by Prosper, and you can just call me Quinn. I'm so excited to have you on the show because there are so many coaches out there, life coaches, business coaches, executive coaches, performance coaches, leadership coaches that bring different messages. And there's tens of thousands of us out there. And it's hard to sometimes cut through the noise. But the reason why I chose to bring you on the show today is because your message spoke to me. I think it really connects with the effort over results philosophy, and we'll get into that during the show. But let's start here. The word that keeps coming up when I go to your social media, when I go to your website, when I really do the research about you, it's clarity, right? And a lot of people would say that word is vague. It's tough to really pinpoint what that truly means for each individual. What does clarity mean for me as a human? But in reading through your material, I got a better sense of it. And once again, the reason why you're here today. But I want you to talk about it. So David, welcome to the show. Prosper, welcome to the show. And let's talk about clarity. And what was the motivation behind developing this philosophy of bringing clarity to people's lives?
Quinn, that's such a great question. And again, thank you for having me on this show. And I'm excited to have this conversation. Like
Awesome.
clarity, I remember going on vividly. I was on a hike during in Colorado Springs, and I'm up the mountain, and I'm just like, God, like Tony Robbins has this thing, John Maxwell has this thing. It was like, what is David Prosper's things? Like, and I knew like leadership was the avenue that I wanted to talk on, but that's a very saturated
Yeah.
industry and even like coaching opportunity. And I just stayed in silence, and then I heard this word that resonated with me, and now I'm obsessed with it. It's clarity. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? And it's like people don't do things, not the lack of courage or the lack of information, but the lack of clarity. So again, like you said, it's a very ambiguous word and overly used, I believe, sometimes, but
Yeah.
let's simplify it. And I believe clarity is knowing why we're doing things, how we're doing things, and where we're going with the things that we're doing. So
Okay.
why, how, and where, and how we develop it, or how we know we're in clarity is, are we present? Are we purposeful? And are we experiencing peace? So clarity is this groundedness of, okay, like I am centered and I'm grounded and I'm in alignment. And we have those checkpoints like, am I present in the things that I'm doing? Am I purposeful? And is this in alignment with my purpose that my gifts and talents are being utilized to serve others? And then am I experiencing peace? And if we're experiencing pressure, we're not in clarity.
Love that definition. And I'll tell you why, because for the last year or so, and I just left my corporate job to go forward with EOR and this brand and this philosophy, it's that I was lacking clarity in my life, the way you define it and describe it. And I felt like my purpose was calling me somewhere else to this now, today. But yeah, there was a little confusion. It's like, am I really learning and growing where I am? How do I define that clarity? What is my, and the other word I would add to your definition is intent. There's intention towards
Hmm.
it, and having purpose and intention. And I have gotten some peace from that. So thank you for defining it that way, because it really just defines my life over this last year and a half. So great connection, great synergies with what you're saying. Let's talk about the being at peace thing. And one of the messages that I keep trying to bring across to my listeners and the people I work with is that happiness and peace, I think, are two different things. I think happiness is something that we tend to chase, and we're never going to ever be happy 24/7. That just, it doesn't happen. I think happiness is, it should be more defined as contentment, and I think maybe that's where the peace things comes in. So talk to me more about being at peace once you find that clarity. What does that look like? What does that feel like? And how do people sustain that for longer periods of time?
Quinn, that's a great question. And I also want to like put a an asterisk here. I want to circle back to understanding what was your catalyst moment to make you walk away from your
Mm,
corporate job to pursue that clarity. But to answer your question, the peace part is it's acceptance. And again, another overused word, but I believe the reason why we are unable or we have the most friction in things is because we hold on to what was and we hold on to what it could have been. Like accepting what is peace. And peace isn't the absence of chaos, but it's the acceptance of everything and understanding who am I? What do I value? What's my identity? What is my belief? And do I trust myself? So when someone's in peace, they are able to trust themselves because they trust their ability, their wisdom, their discernment to navigate through life. So like I remember hearing this proverb of a bird. A bird isn't afraid of the branch breaking because it believes in its ability to fly.
hmm,
And I would say the same thing for peace. Peace isn't the absence of pain and problems and adversity. It's the ability to navigate those things with the tools, the strategies, the systems, and then I would add on top of it the stories we tell ourselves. So if I
mm,
tell myself a story of I'm an empower, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I can get through it, I'm gonna have peace. But if I tell myself the story of I'm a victim and things are happening to me, I don't, so I'm living in a state of chaos. So our stories shapes our emotions, and our emotions start shaping our anxiety and how we perceive the world and how we interact with others. But I want to circle back, like, what was that catalyst moment for you to walk away from your industry to pursue this all out?
yeah. Great question. I think for me, I wasn't able, it got to a point where I wasn't able to be my genuine, authentic self. And that started to bother me because it's something that I truly believe in, and something that I preach to my children, to the people that I work with, anybody who will really listen, is that when you are able to be your genuine, authentic self in a psychologically safe environment, it's truly when you start to grow, and when you start to
Mm,
find who you are, and you also start to attract what you're putting out. And there's so many people out there, especially with social media today, that are so young people, especially. I have two 20-year-olds, and they're so heavily affected by that, and in trying to be something that they're not. And I think even as adults, we're like that too. And that's what I felt, is that I was being placed in a bit of a box, and being asked to speak the corporate language, dress the corporate way, follow the corporate vision and mission. And I do believe in the company that I work for. I do believe in what they do, but after 15 years, Prosper, it wasn't starting to mesh with my worldview anymore, of who I wanted to be and the purpose that I want my life to serve in the next 5, 10, 20 years.
mm. That's beautiful. And I'm hearing like just it's like every Disney movie. It's like we've been doing something for so long, and then there's this tug of war in our hearts, in your heart, of something doesn't align anymore. Something doesn't
Yeah.
align, and something's pulling you out, and that becomes like your catalyst to step out and do this full time,
Yeah.
become the blueprint for someone else to then follow. Like, okay, here's the steps and the tools. So thank you for sharing that. That was powerful.
Yeah, and you know what? Leaving a six-figure corporate job to do this literally on $0 to start. Like it's a grind. I mean, you've gone through the grind, you're still going through it.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
because it's and I wouldn't even call us a passion project because a passion project implies a hobby almost. I think it's
Yeah.
something this is now I have more clarity in my life of what my purpose is and what I've recognized over the last you're now doing therapy with me. What I've recognized over the last 30 to 40 years of the different careers that I've had is that everything always boils down to wanting to help others get better. So it's, 30 plus years of coaching amateur sport, helping young kids get better in sport in 4 or 5 different sports. It's running my own company where we hired people to try to grow them up and graduate them out better than when we found them. It's being a high school teacher for 5 years and working with kids in the classroom and on the sports fields. It's being a parent. It's being a partner. And even in the job that I had for this last 15 years, I always tried to leave my clients better than when I found them. And now this has all culminated in effort over results and what I want to bring to the masses of people who will connect with what I'm trying to say, much like you want people to connect with what you're trying to say. And we're not trying to push our messages on 8 billion people. We're trying to find those people who it speaks to because those are
Yes.
genuinely the true clients and friends that you make during your vocation that build those relationships and people are successful from that relationship.
Yeah. 100%.
So let's I want to go back to something you said. I'm glad I remembered is effort over results believes in the philosophy of everything happens for a reason and all we can control is our attitude and effort. And I realize that's a bit of a sports cliche to say everything, all we can control, but it's true. All we can control really is our attitude and effort to what we are experiencing in the moment. So I loved what you said about we tend to focus and dwell on the past and what has been and it definitely shapes us. I mean, the traumas we went through, everything we've gone through shapes to who we are today. But being able to bring yourself into today and accepting what comes and only really focusing on our attitude towards those situations and the effort we put into things allows people to be more at peace. And I've found myself more at peace since I've embraced this too. And my kids have found it and the people that I work with have found it because all we can do is put effort in. And what happens after that is left up to God, the universe, however you want to call it. But it really is. It's really just I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other every day, be 1% better. There's all those mantras out there, but they're all true. It's like we just want to get a little bit better and then whatever the universe or whatever God has in mind for us or the plan for us, we have to just let happen and trust him or trust, the universe. I'm a faith-based man, Prosper, so I like saying that God has a plan for me and I believe in it. I believe there's profit in all labor. That's another Bible verse on top of Philippians 4:13, which you just quoted. And that's where it comes from. But how do we get people to accept the quote unquote it is what it is? And then how do they respond to that based on your philosophy?
Mm. That's a beautiful intersection right there. Like, how do
Mm,
you get them to adopt a different paradigm when they've been practicing a paradigm for some time? And conditioning is one of the, or reconditioning is one of the hardest
yes.
things to combat. But the first step, like, because one of the things in the clarity framework model is connection. And I believe if we don't have the skill sets, the qualities, the characteristics that we aspire to, then we need to find the individuals who have that and then surround ourselves, whether it's listening to a podcast, being in a community group, or going to a network, seeing who model the characteristics, the lifestyle that we want to adopt, and then find a way to connect with them before, because I believe environments changes everything. If
Hmm.
someone doesn't have that mindset to practice effort over result or 1% better or how do I take my next step? It's just like, okay, who's doing what I want to do, and am I around those people? And we tend to be around the individuals who aren't doing what we want to do, and then we're just like, well, I'm doing everything that I do. It's like, how's your environment? And I believe environments can either shape us to evolve or prohibit us until we dissolve.
I fully agree with you on that. Man, it's even as something as simple as this may seem like a silly example, but even in our own homes, here's the example I use. You know, you have the furniture in a particular formation for years, right? And that one day you decide, you know what? I think the couch looks better over there. We're going to move the coffee table here and we're going to change this up, whatever. And then it just changes your outlook, even if it's just like a 0.5%, that your changes your environment a little bit. But even in developing habits, it's like placing, you know, your water bottle closer to where you can fill it so you can be more hydrated during the day. Having your gym bag by the door so it reminds you to go work out. All of that is environment. It is the people you hang out with. It is the stores and restaurants and places that you go to on a regular basis. And so getting back to your statement on environment, one of the most powerful statements I heard online, I think it was Alex Hormozy that said this, but he goes, if something's wrong in your life and you don't feel you feel like you're stuck, that you can't get, change your environment. It might be your friends, it might be your job, it might be, you know, the path you take to work every day. It doesn't matter, but change things up because our body craves new challenges. The
Hmm.
frontal cortex, the AMCC, anterior mid-cingulate cortex, thank you, Andrew Huberman, basically it wants challenges, it wants us to keep growing. So let's talk about that environment because I think that's so critical. So when you're working with clients, Prosper, how do you explain that to them? I've explained it one way. How do you explain environment to them and get them to maybe realize that their environment isn't working for them?
That's another challenge, but it's a beautiful challenge because it goes back to reconditioning. And we as human love to stay in comfort rather than growth and whatever is convenient. That's why Amazon does a great job.
Yeah.
But I would say I help them start asking questions. What I believe is the best thing we can do is start asking questions and practicing curiosity. So
Mm,
we do a relationship inventory.
mm,
And in that relationship inventory, I ask, do you the current people in your life, do you have complainers, comparers, consumers, and competitors? And they're just like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's like complainers. Complainers are the people who will find a problem within
yep.
every solution. And then compares, these are the people who's just like, oh, your kid did that, but my kid did this too. And
Yeah.
it's like tit for tat. And then consumers is like, how much more can I take from you? It's like, I know you don't have the emotional energy, but let me emotionally dump all my problems and just consume. And then the competitors, these are the individuals like, oh, you did this, but I'm gonna do this. It's that unhealthy competitiveness.
Yeah.
As a former athlete, I love competing and I'm a boxer right now.
Okay.
So I love the competition. It gets us better, but there's unhealthy competition. And then once they're able to like identify like this person is a complainer and they complain a lot. This person compares a lot. This person consumes. And I'm like, okay, here's the people who will enrich your life. These are the celebrators. They're cheering you on. It's like, yo, go Quinn, like you did this. This is the contributors. Hey, you're doing that. Hey, how can I support this? This is the collaborators. Oh, you're working on this. Have you considered this? Have you considered this angle? This is the connectors. You're doing this. Have you ever considered doing this? Or you need to talk to this individual right here because they're going to help you get on that path. And then once they start looking at that, they're like, and last is the cultivators. These
Mm,
are the people who help us grow. It's just like, yo, I want to give you feedback. And there's a difference. Like I was talking to my girlfriend the other day. There's this difference between feedback and criticism. And we often misconstrue them. And we say, oh, I'm just giving you constructive feedback or constructive criticism. It's not constructive criticism.
no.
It's if I can't grow from the feedback that you give me, it is a criticism.
Yeah.
Like if I say, Quinn, you suck, and you're like, oh, thanks. Right. But if I
Yeah.
say, hey, you could have done this a little different, and here's how I'd approach it, like, that's
Yeah.
feedback and opportunity to grow. So cultivators are saying, hey, here's what you're good at. Can we amplify this a little bit more? So when they start doing that relational inventory of their ecosystem, they're like, so now the next question is, who am I willing to subtract in this season in order to yield the most results? And
Mm,
then they're just like, okay, like some people have to go away for a little bit, but it's not the severance of that relationship, but it's like, hey, I may not give this person as much emotional access to me. So I'm going to create a little bit more boundary so I'm not as emotionally drained and I have the capacity for the right people. What are your thoughts?
I have a lot. I love that. We got to get those up on the screen every time you say the different C's, the C words, because obviously that's kind of what it's going after. I love that because I would definitely, take a list of my friends, colleagues, peers, people I spend time with, and then, put that label beside them of what they are. And that's something else that it's something else that I've really tried to do over the past few years. I've grown so much in the last 5 years, David, that I love it, but man, it's been emotionally challenging, and letting certain friends just kind of fall off to the side, and like you said, just not giving them my emotional energy, but then trying to bring other people into my life that make me feel like I'm growing. It's not, I mean, you can have celebrators, and it doesn't mean you need someone cheering you on nonstop, but just people that support you, right? People
Yeah.
that are and also are giving you genuine support, because what I've found is when you're growing a business, or you're growing a practice like you and I are doing in coaching, you're always going to have your celebrators. You're always going to have those family members and friends that are like, "Oh, this is going to be so great and you're so awesome." That's good, but you also want those people who are real with you while they're celebrating. It's like, this is going to be awesome. You're perfect for this, but then they give you a little bit of feedback with it. But I love those two sides to, the four C's on each side. But really, what is bringing support into your life of what you're doing and who you're trying to be, and what is really just started to drag you down. And what I realized here in the last couple years is that friends kind of are just meant to come and go. These people who have had friends literally since childhood, I've never really quite figured that one out, because I've never had a friend since childhood, or maybe it's like a high school friend that you've had and you're still friends with them. I believe that people come in and out of your life as God intends, or as the universe intends, and they are there for a certain amount of time to provide something, and then they either go away or maybe they continue to have that relationship. But I like that inventory, because I feel like people don't take that life inventory often enough of who's really bringing me up and who's dragging me down. And that's something that is really interesting. So thank you for that. I'm gonna actually rewatch this and place all my friends in a category. Yeah, it's gonna be good. So you also talk about peace, purpose, and prosperity, and I'm taking, I believe, a direct quote. How do those intersect? Because some people might not equate peace with prosperity. And then I'd like you to define what prosperity means to you, because everybody has a different definition. But what is peace, purpose, and prosperity?
Oh, it's literally the game plan, right?
Yeah.
It's step one, step two, step three.
Yeah.
Peace is like you talked about this, the psychological aspect is when we're in a state of flow, in a state of groundedness, in a state of centeredness. It's when we're no longer operating out of our amygdala brain and we're in our prefrontal cortex. Our heart is connected with our spirit, and we're aligned. Some people say universe, I believe God. It's
Yeah.
just like I am connected to God, who's my creator, and I'm in conversation with him. And despite what happens around me, I know that I'm going to be okay. And if nothing is okay, I am still okay. And from that place is like the purpose. Who am I? Who do I want to serve? And oftentimes, purpose is a very ubiquitous word, overly used by a lot of leaders. Find your purpose, find your purpose. But it's just like, okay, what is my purpose? So, who do I want to serve? And then the next question, how do I want to serve them based off my gifts and talents? For me, it's communication, it's strategy, it's coaching. For others, it's support, it's administrative, or it's they're an amplifier, they're a support system. So it's like, how do I use my skill sets to serve these individuals? And then prosperity is the end goal, it's the outcome. Because of I have peace, I'm serving the people in the way that it's in alignment with my goals. And then prosperity is I'm living in wholeness. That means my health is it's in alignment, it's at a very proficient place. My relationships are proficient, my finances are proficient. So it's a holistic, I am living in a holistic grounded wellness spot. So prosperity is not just money, it's prosperity in
Yeah.
relationships, it's prosperity. So it's just, are my relationships well? Are as my finances well? And if there's wellness throughout all of those silos of our lives, I believe we're living in prosperity.
Hmm. I think I've heard this on social media about it's either the four or the five F's. It's like faith, family, friendship, fitness, and finances, and
Yeah.
having prosperity in all of those and working towards those. I want to let's stay on peace, purpose, and prosperity for a second, because what I believe, and this really speaks to the effort over results philosophy, is if we put the effort in to find our peace and our purpose, the prosperity will handle itself. It will be what's given to us through God, through, through what returns to us in finding that peace and process, or finding that peace and purpose. Because what I interpreted and what you just said, Prosper, is the end goal. There shouldn't be an obsessive focus on the end goal result of prosperity. It's like, I need to be prosperous. I need to have prosperity in all of these areas. Like that obsessed, results obsessed mentality. If you focus on the effort that you put into finding your peace and your purpose, that will just happen the way it needs to happen. Don't you believe that?
100%. It's like effort over result. It's if we focus on the intentions and the steps, the outcome's inevitable. I remember
Yeah.
my first year in playing college football, one of the seniors, he said to the freshman class, he said, marry the process and the outcome's inevitable.
Mm,
And at 17 years old, I was like, what the heck does this mean? But as I grew older, I was like, okay, if I marry the process, if I'm intentional, if I'm disciplined in the process, the outcome's inevitable. And it's stacking days, and it's compounding. And like I just took up boxing, and over 2 years, I've I've surpassed a lot of people who've been doing it for a long time because I'm like, okay, if I focus on just the jab, I'm just gonna be proficient in jab. Then I'm gonna focus on the cross, and I'm gonna work on. So like you said, it's the end goal. But like if we're hyper focused on the prosperity, then we'll do things that become compromising, then we'll miss opportunities to connect with the right people. And then maybe we achieve it, but we achieve it with chaos and
mm,
strife and burnt bridges along the way
yeah.
of having this illusion. So, are we truly in prosperity? Or are we truly in the result that we want? If all of these other things have been dismantled in the way of that journey. So, yeah, I 100% agree.
I believe, and I didn't quote this, but I believe in being directionally correct, not absolutely correct.
Say more.
And what it means is deliver the inputs that you know you need to move towards whatever the end result is that you would prefer, that you would like, but accept whatever is given to you. It's like saying, I'm going to a city, but I don't know the address yet. We can't control the outcomes or the goals that we set and whatever. All we can control is what we put towards it. And so being directionally correct means set those goals, that's fine, but set them and forget them, because you might find something along the way in the process, in the journey, that is more fulfilling for you. And I think people, like I said, with effort over results, I'm not trying to espouse that being results oriented is a bad thing, or goal oriented is a bad thing. We all need goals, but we can't be so fixated on them that we change who we are, that we miss out on other opportunities along the way, like we have blinders on. Just put in the inputs, put in the efforts, and then just kind of let things happen. And that's why I believe everything happens for a reason, good or bad. And
Yeah.
and even in my faith, I believe God has a purpose for me. And right now I'm heading towards what I think is my purpose of delivering a coaching philosophy and a mentality that will help businesses and help teachers and parents and coaches. But if there's something else out there over the next 1 to 5 years that changes my path, I'm okay with that, because I'm putting in the efforts to move towards it. So that's what I mean by that, is that there's profit in all labor, and we should be directionally correct and allow things just to come to us naturally from that effort.
I'm gonna take that one. That was good. Directionally correct. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's so relatable. There's this book that I read called Raising Human Beings that directly coincide of what you do. And when I was in the education space, oftentimes even educators, they would praise students based off their grades. Like, oh, you're an
Mm,
A student, B student, and that would become the identity they would
yep.
associate with. versus praising their effort. Hey, Quinn, like I seen the effort that you put to work really hard. I love that. Keep that up. And
regardless of the
even
output.
regardless, and
Yeah,
if he did get an A or she, it
yeah,
was just like they're hyper focused on, you know what? My
yeah,
effort is getting praised versus my outcome is getting praised. And now my work ethic increases versus,
yeah.
well, if I don't hit this mark, then I'm not nothing. So that book, Raising Human Beings, was phenomenal. So it definitely coincided with what you're
It
doing.
totally connects with Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset.
Yeah.
Growth
Yeah.
mindset, the study she did was like 500, I think, fourth grade kids, and they gave them all a quiz, and then they praised half the group on their effort and praised half the group on their
Hmm.
results. And then when they said, okay, we're going to do another quiz, the kids who were praised on the result only were so afraid of having a mark that might be lower or not achieving as much, they chose the easier test. And the kids praised for their effort chose the harder test because they liked the challenge, because they knew that they would only be praised on their effort. They weren't being, their self-worth was not based on what the outcome was. And this is why the effort over results mentality and even the clarity and prosperity that you profess, it's all about, once again, it's all about just what we can control
Yeah.
and being praised for that. So in the workplace, or when you're working with athletes or working with students, we both were teachers, or working with even your own children, recognize the result. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ignore the fact they won or got an A or whatever. Don't ignore it, but spend far more time praising the work that went into it. And
Yes.
even if they got, let's say they got a 57, bad, let's say they got a D, but you knew they busted their hiney to really put out in a good project or have a good test, whatever. Continue to just say, you know what, it's not the result you were looking for, but I really appreciate the fact that I saw you study all week for that test. So don't worry about the result. That's going to happen. You're not always going to achieve everything you want to achieve, but I love the work ethic you put into it. When I brought that forth to my son when he was in high school, it literally, it's like you could see this boulder being lifted off his back, because he was not a great
Hmm.
test taker. He was a good student, but not a good test taker. And he would get 50s and 60s on tests and just be absolutely devastated by it. He's trying to get a scholarship to the States. And I just said, look, if I see you working hard, I'll study with you. Even if I see you studying, if I see you putting in all the effort you can, I don't care what the result is. I don't. Every teacher is going to grade you differently. Every rubric is different. Every
Yeah.
relationship you have with your instructors is going to be a little bit different. They're going to grade accordingly. All you can do is put in the effort towards doing well. And if you don't do well, I am not going to chastise you for not having a good grade if I saw you put the work in. But I need to see you put the work in.
Yeah.
Same thing on the football field. He was at University of Arizona in 2020. First year was COVID. And 2021, he's thinking, I'm going to get some playing time. It's not happening. The coaches are, you know this, Prosper. Coaches are political, and he wasn't getting the playing time. I said, look, kid, you can't control their decision making. All you can do is build an undeniable stack of proof you are who you say you are. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't miss workouts. Don't miss classes. Don't miss training sessions. Sit at the front of the room during meetings. Contribute. All those layers you need to stack. It'll happen. And if it doesn't, you can't control that because these coaches just don't see it. Whatever. You can't get into their heads. Sure enough, by the end of 2022, he was starting and started the entire 23 season. And they go, see, kid,
Let's go.
all you had to do was just put the effort in and just let things happen. And so now he just, his mindset's awesome, because now he just takes everything on as a challenge, as opposed to, did I win or lose?
Hmm. That's a game changer.
It is. And that's what I love about, this is what I love about your philosophy and my philosophy of the effort over results, and what we're talking about today, is that this transcends business. I mean, I realize we work with business leaders and high performers in the corporate world, but our philosophies work well with teachers working with students, coaches
Yeah.
working with athletes, parents working with their kids, individuals trying to work on themselves. And that's the philosophies that really I feel stick and have the most agency in people's lives, are the ones that they can apply everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. And what we're doing, and my hope, like my audacious goal, is to help a billion and equip a billion people to live life by design. Like what we're doing is it's like putting on glasses, like the glasses you have on right now. There is so much information, there's motivation, there's all of those things that are out there telling you, but it's when you focus on the effort, when you focus on clarity, it's what is my next step? And that actually becomes a filtering process for not being overwhelmed, because on the pendulum side, the lack of clarity is anxiety and overwhelm and depression because we're circulating and ruminating of what's going wrong, what's happening, and we're so. I remember talking to this one adolescent, and and I asked, like, she shared, I have anxiety, and I was like, why? It's just like, well, I'm thinking about all these things, the world and the wars and having kids. And I was like, how old are you? She was like, I'm 16. I was like, so you're 16 thinking about the war, thinking about having a child, bringing the child into the world, thinking about going to college. I was like, that sounds like a lot. I was like, what out of those things can you control?
Yep.
Well, I can't control the war. I can't control how the world is right now. It can
Mhm.
only control my attitude. Like, what if you just focus on that thing? Like your world becomes smaller, your focus becomes sharper,
Mhm.
and your happiness, as you mentioned earlier, becomes more sustainable. Your peace becomes more grounded, and then life becomes better. It's as I hear you talk about the effort, is just like it's a filtering process. And I don't think we filter enough garbage because we just consume a lot of things, and that's what we do in our world right now. Is just like I just want everything. But one of the chapters in my upcoming book, I talk about the power of subtraction. And in a world where we talk about more, 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 it's like, no, less is more. Charmin said it best. Less is more. And it filters out what doesn't need to be worried about, and it focuses on what we need to worry about.
And I like that you said that you work with young people too, because this is really where, my philosophy was born out of, is having my children and going through their teen, well, obviously all their years, but I'm saying the teen years are the most chaotic. But even us as humans, we're trying to add so much and trying to find that instant gratification and trying to find that instant success in life. And I heard a quote once. It's like, we've already achieved things that you said would make you happy. And I was just like, yeah, like you said, if you got that degree, you'd be happy because it would land a job.
Hmm.
Did it? Maybe in the moment. Or, you got, if I get that job, I'll be happy. Okay, you got the job. Now you hate the job because you didn't realize what was involved. Are you happy now? No. And that's why I always sort of I kind of toy with the term happiness, because happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes so quickly in our lives, and but it's because we're trying to constantly find it and chase it
Yeah.
and compare ourselves to others, and social media reminds us of how inadequate we are compared to our friends and colleagues and peers, and especially for young people. This is why Gen Z is riddled with anxiety, because they have a nonstop feed of everything that's wrong with their life, and they let it affect them. And by subtracting, and I had to do this, I just stopped watching the news. Number one, during COVID, stop watching news. I mean, it's impossible to get away from, but you try to do your best. Just subtract, subtract, subtract. Going back to environment, what you said, Prosper. Environment, subtract those people in your life that are not adding value. Subtract those things, those habits in your life that are not adding value. Be a minimalist in life.
I love that. And I know that I remember having this conversation with this individual, and I got pushback on it. And I
Mm,
was like, there are people who are assets and liabilities. And the individual responded back and was like, but everyone has worth, everyone has. But I was like, what if we treated our lives like we would treat business? Like if we were business owners and we were making decisions based off business, like, is this an asset or a liability? It's not to say one person is bad and the other person is good. It's not our job to judge people. But like you said, are they adding value? It's the true question. Do they make things better or do they make things worse? And if they're not, if they're not adding value, then they're typically a child. They're dependent.
yeah.
But if we don't have that parental relationship and they're an adult, it's like, all right, is things getting better because of being around you or things getting worse? How am I feeling around you? So I know that's countercultural when people say like, are people adding value? It's like, no, everyone has value, but there are very few people who bring value, who contribute. It's like a potluck. You don't want to invite the same person to the potluck and they don't bring anything. It's just like you eat all the food. Can you just bring a plate? Bring
Yeah.
plates for us. So it's like it's that mentality. So like if we can adopt that and our listeners can adopt that, it's just like a potluck. And are the people in your life bringing things to the potluck, or are they just eating all the food and then walking out and not even helping cleaning?
Yeah, I think everybody can add value, but maybe not to you. Maybe that
Yeah.
person would be better off with the way they operate, providing it to someone else who they connect with better. Not everybody
Yeah.
can bring value to my life, but maybe somewhere else, that's fine. Go do that somewhere else. I need to start focusing on, and it's not being selfish. It's
No.
self, if anything, it's self-care. It's
Yeah.
taking care of yourself and your mindset and what you were trying to like you said earlier, peace and purpose. Continuing to move towards peace and purpose, and then you'll find that clarity and you'll find that prosperity. I want to you mentioned the word being stuck, and in doing my research I saw that in in your social media posts and people being stuck. And here's what I envision, Prosper, because you talk about subtraction, not addition, is on our journey. As we're walking down this road, we get stuck because we're keep adding things, and I see it as like backpacks, weights, backpacks being added to and every time we keep trying to add things to our life, we're adding more weight to our life. And then you just get bogged down in the mud on the road, and now you're stuck and you can't releasing that. But what's your definition of being stuck, Prosper, in terms of the people you work with and the philosophy you bring? What does that mean?
Suck, I would define it as the unwillingness to release what we've been holding on that no
Mm,
longer serves us.
mm, mm-hmm,
And there are many times, like growing up in the projects for me, I've had to like defend myself. So I was very physical. Like if someone says something different, we'd fight. And it was a survival mechanism that saved me, that got me out of the projects to go play college football in Wisconsin, which was very different from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So that piece of survival helped me, but I could no longer use that piece of survival in a different environment. So there was a lot of guys who came from Florida who went to Wisconsin who only stayed in college for a year because they were like, oh, this has been my mentality for so long and I have to keep it. And I was like, no, you're stuck. You need to evolve. So
yeah.
it's the unwillingness to let go of the things that are no longer serving us in that current season.
That's beautiful, because I think, and that's a great definition of being stuck, is we are continuing to carry those things from our past that no longer serve us. And even when we change our environment, it's I'm the king of analogies. It's like when you move houses and you bring everything with you instead of purging and getting rid of the stuff you really didn't need so that your new home is more efficient and more functional. We just bring
Yes.
everything. That's basically, it's baggage, and that's why we use the term, man, that
Yeah.
person has a lot of baggage, because they're literally carrying so much trauma and crap from their childhood, from their teenage years, from relationships, and not getting rid of it.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine how that person, we all have done it, we all do it. It's those who intentionally try to unload that baggage that are finding that peace, like you said. Here's the question I have for you. I want to move over to leadership, because I know you work with high performers, you work with leaders. Why do you believe that most leaders aren't actually leading? What does leadership look like to you? And when people say, well, I'm a leader in my company, or I'm a leader in the group that I work with, but when are they really not leading, even though they have the label of being leaders?
Leader is not leading when they're not cultivating the people under them or around them. And oftentimes, we as leaders, and I've done this earlier on in my leadership career, I would use my title to influence versus connection to influence. And
Mm,
oftentimes, it's not when we think about connection, it's like, do we have to get along with everyone? You don't have to get along with everyone, but you can connect with everyone. And how we connect with everyone is being curious about them. And the difference between like a manager and a leader is a manager manages process. Okay, here's what we need to do. A leader is like they develop people. Here's what we need to do. How do we do it with the people that we have and place them in the right position? So a leader is not leading when they're not cultivating. And people tend to follow people who cultivate them like, oh, I'm growing and I feel that I'm growing, and then they celebrate that growth. But I would define it as that. How about yourself?
yeah, well, I once again, another quote that I haven't coined, but basically, leadership is not a title.
No.
It is a series of actions that grow other people. Your job as a leader in 2025 moving forward is to make sure that the people that you are leading that are in your report are getting better. And when you do that, and when you have an effort-based culture, when you have a psychologically safe work environment where people can be themselves and they feel free to speak up and challenge authority, meaning by just questioning, they grow. And they will be more productive ultimately in the end, and this creates more profitability for the company. And I know we don't want to necessarily talk about profitability, but it's true. Microsoft change, Google change, Pixar, Patagonia, they all went to an effort-based environment where they grew the people first. Yes,
Yeah.
they have metrics. Yes, they have quarterly goals and things like that. But their philosophy was, listen, if we take the people that we have and we continue to grow those people and have them understand the value they have to the company, but also that they embrace the values of the company and we also embrace their values as contributors, the results will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And it did. And this is why effort over results is why I coined it this way, because we got to stop focusing on did we win or lose? Did we hit our quarterly target? What were the margins this month? Okay, I get it. You have to have something to work towards. Fine. Set it and forget it, and now cultivate the people that are responsible for going towards that. And
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
what
And
leadership should be.
yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. It's the measurable, because I used to be in sales, and one of the
Mm,
things my sales trainer would teach is what gets measured gets done. So the measurable KPIs should always get measured. That's how we know like our progress tracker. Like, are
sure.
we moving in the right direction? And then what process we need to work on. Then the next thing that I'm working on proposing to leaders and the people that I coach is the C5 method, or the C5 model, is the intangibles. So are the people in my circle under me that I'm leading, is their capacity growing? Is their competency growing? Are they growing in their courage? Are their connections growing, and are they growing in curiosity? And those are the intangibles that, like you were saying earlier, becomes transferable to literally everything, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job. So it's like leaders will cultivate all of those C's, as well as, all right, here's our north. We're looking at the invisibles, the intangibles, the soft skills, and then we're also looking at the hard skills. And how do we find that diagram of continuing to move the people forward? So they can feel like, oh, I'm growing in this. And then I'm seeing my numbers as well. So, like, it's because I'm growing in this versus I don't see my numbers. It's because I'm worthless.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember distinctly in the corporate job that I had, very metric based. Obviously, I was in sales as well, and I had one leader one year that basically kept reminding me of that I hadn't hit my target for the month. You're what they called it a run rate. It's like, okay, let's say your sales target for the year, and I'll keep easy math here, was $480,000. Well, you divide that by 12 months, that's 40,000 a month in sales. And he was like, you didn't do 40,000 this month. What are we going to do about that? I'm like, well, thanks for the math lesson, number one. Two, did you check my activities? Did you check my CRM? Did you check everything that I did this month in terms of the effort that I put in? And he's like, well, that doesn't matter because we didn't hit our sales target. And it just deflated me. And I was just like, you know what? And I almost quit then. It's funny. I almost quit then. That was 10 years ago. And then I was assigned a new leader a couple years later who I was having it was a drought. It was a hitting slump. I went 3 months without a sale. And my leader said, you know what? I checked the CRM. You have more than enough activity. You've done more than enough meetings and phone calls and outreaches. Don't worry, it'll happen. You're due for a big win here soon. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. That's the difference between a
Hmm.
good leader and a bad leader. Is the bad leader focuses on the result and the fact that you didn't do it and you didn't achieve it. And they don't even
Yeah.
look at the work you put in. And a good leader recognizes that the metrics that truly matter are you putting the inputs in to head towards what that goal and result should be? You can't control the market you work in. You can't control the economy. You can't control your clients and their decision making. All you can do is continue to put the efforts in, and you're going to have good months and bad months. It happens.
Yeah.
And that was the best example of leadership that I found, and I continue to use that example. It's the same thing with coaches and athletes, or once again with students. It's like, well, you didn't, or even parents that tell their kids, it's like, well, you didn't have an A average. You've just basically told the kid you're worthless to me unless you have an A average. Or
Yeah.
we didn't win the championship game. This whole season was a waste of time because we didn't win the championship game. Stop obsessing over results, people. Give people credit for where they put the work in, for the effort they put in, and they will continue to try and replicate that and mimic that and continue to put in hard work. That's what we want.
100%. That's a good key indicator, like a compare and contrast of like what draws me closer, what repels me, and the fact that again, the leader that you've experienced, that's a beautiful comparison.
What's an under speaking of effort, what's an underrated effort that leads to clarity, but maybe goes unrewarded or unseen? What's an effort that can lead to clarity that we aren't maybe recognizing?
Curiosity.
Or,
We often get praise like from grade school when a teacher asks a question and it's that one kid who's constantly answering. And we've been conditioned to have the right answers. But the greatest inventions and discoveries have been because we've asked the right questions.
hmm,
So curiosity allows us to temporarily suspend our understanding of what it is and then to adopt a new framework, mindset, paradigm. And then it gives us the courage to explore it. And as we explore it, then we can grow our competency. Like for coaches who are starting off in funnels, you first have to be curious about funnels. Okay, how does funnels work? Okay, or I create this lead page, and after that, then what's the script? So
hmm,
through curiosity comes competence. Through competence comes courage. From courage comes confidence, and then the last step is conviction. I just know that I know that I know. So the first step is curiosity.
yeah, you have so many C words today, Prosper. I'm losing track of them all, but I love that. It's because it's an it's easy to remember those things. But you know what? I honestly believe in the 30 plus podcasts I've done in the last 60 days. Be curious, not judgmental has come up 90% of the time in our conversations on these podcasts. And once again, everybody refers to Ted Lasso. Love the show. He talks about be curious, not judgmental. And but it's true. Being
Yeah.
and I've started to try to adopt that in my life. So here's a good example. My mindset, 5 years ago and prior to that, when I was driving downtown in the city we live in and seeing homeless people, I was like, just this feeling of disdain for that person. Like, what crappy decisions did they make in their life to whatever. And I was judging them, and it's like, and now I look upon people who are less fortunate. I look upon homeless people, or anybody, and I go, I wonder what happened that that put them in this position, right? Like, there's a genuine curiosity, and why couldn't they get help? Who didn't give them the tools to not be in this position? And it's the same thing with kids. When I taught my first year of teaching in high school, and this is back in like 2000, so 25 years ago, I would have students that would be failing my class, not show up to class, not hand in assignments, and my immediate judgment on them was, well, they're a lost cause, whatever, and they're not going to amount to anything. I'm not going to bother working with them. There's no point. It took me leaving teaching 5 years later and looking back going, man, the disservice I did to some of my students. And I was a good teacher. Like, I really did care for my students, but I also didn't have a lot of patience for kids who wouldn't put in the effort. But I also didn't give them a chance. And
Mm.
and as teachers, when you have 36 kids in a classroom, you teach to the middle. So the 90% students get bored, the 50% students are lost and just give up, and the ones in the middle are doing their best and they're keeping their head above water. But I regret, and once again, this is what EOR was born out of. I regret the way I handled certain students because I was so hard on them and not asking questions and like, what's going on? What's going on at home? How are you feeling today? Like, are you okay? Like really truly caring, which is what our leaders in employment should do, which what our coaches should do with our athletes, and so forth. And I didn't do that. And then that started to get me thinking about my own children. And allowing them to just be who they are and stop controlling them and guiding them and saying, you really should be doing this and giving them dad advice, as they call it, too much dad advice. It's like, just be curious and just ask questions. Have those genuine, authentic conversations with people, no matter who it is, to try to understand. Because
Yeah.
it'll change the way you see life. It'll enrich your life more to have perspective. And those people may turn around because of that conversation you have with them instead of just throwing them to the side.
Yeah. And I think there should be like an asterisk on top of curiosity,
Mm,
because there's effective questions and there's ineffective questions. And I had this
yeah.
conversation with my client today. She asked, um, she was like, what if I never get over this hurt? And I
Mm,
was like, I love that you're asking a question. I don't know if that might be the most effective question. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm being curious. I was like, yeah, you are, but you're setting yourself up
mm,
for an expectation versus how do I get over this, or how do I navigate through this?
yes.
So questions are good, but there's a ineffective way to ask questions or an ineffective way to ask questions based off our goals.
That was beautiful. I love that because she said, "What if?" And anytime we say "what if," we're already setting ourselves up
Yeah.
because you're trying to predict the future, and the brain will humans and the human brain will more times than not default to what could go wrong
Yes.
as opposed to what could go right. I love how you handled that client in that, yes, she was being curious, but in the wrong manner, in saying, what if this happens? What if I don't get over this hurt? How do I work myself away from this hurt? So that's beautiful. Just to wrap up here, Prosper. So give me an example, and you've given some small snippets here so far, but give me a really strong example of a client that you started with and they were, let's just say, they were completely stuck. You had a really hard first few sessions with them, let's say, and you were trying to get them to, like, it was one of the more challenging relationships you had with a client, but that ended up being successful.
This is easy. I love the challenging folks, because I have patience like a sea turtle. And I remember Monica. Monica is one of my favorites. When I first met her a year ago, I remember having a conversation. She's 5'3". She was 198 pounds, just living in depression at
Mm,
38 years old. And and I first met her and she was like, nothing I've done is working. And I was like, okay, have you tried this? She was like, yeah, but, and she would tell me a reason why it wouldn't work. And I was like, how about this? And she's like, yeah, but, and I was like, and I told her, and I looked at her and I was like, it seems like you're married to your problems.
hmm,
She was like, what do you mean by that? I was like, I'm asking you to get a divorce from your problems. And you're saying, to death do us part. Then and she was like, I've never heard it put that way. I was like, yeah, you are married, committed. Um, so I asked her, I was like, would you be willing to take this journey with me?
mm,
And she was like, yes. I was like, okay. In this journey, we're gonna go through the darkness. And she was like, well, I don't like going through the dark. I was like, I know. That's why people often say stuck. So working with her, we worked on the fitness side of things by moving her body. Then we worked on the spiritual side of things of asking God questions and pursuing, and her path was Christianity. So it was just like, hey, the right questions lead you to the right understanding. So like, I don't understand God. I was like, are you asking the right questions to understand God? Well, no, what questions should I be asking? Like one is, hey, God, help me understand you. It's a simple one. So we start really shaping that. And then one of the things I give my clients is a clarity journal. So it helps them walk through what is happening in their lives in different areas of their lives, relationship, finances, career, and what I've seen from her. It's like night and day difference. And it hasn't been a full year yet. She's now 141 pounds. Um,
oh,
from 198 to 141. She she loves herself more. She's more like childlike, and in her joy, she process her emotions versus just let her emotions take control of her. And then whenever she feels stuck, she starts journaling. She goes back to the tools that we worked on. So her paradigm was like nothing works. This is the way life is, and nothing is going to be good enough. And then I was like, hey, could we explore what if things get better?
Mhm.
What if I fall in love with myself? So working with her, and we've had some challenging conversations where I would just be like, you need to vent. And she echoed back, I feel safe enough to vent because I learned from one CEO who worked with trauma victims, and he told me this amazing concept. He was like, "You're going to be triggered in this space, but you're going to be safe enough to work through your triggers." And I think that was such a beautiful concept of what my clients, and specifically Monica, is like, you're going to be triggered. I'm going to say things that are going to trigger you, but let's work through those trigger because just like exercising, as we train on these things, you become stronger to deal with these things and ultimately navigate those things. So it's not an absence of nothing bad is going to happen. It's what tools, skills, strategies, systems, stories do I have in my arsenal that allows me to be effective to reflect on these things, process these things, and ultimately release the things that are no longer serving me. So Monica is like a freaking child right now. She's 40 and she's like, man, and I posted her before and after picture, and all her family and friends are like, "Oh my goodness, like you're just a changed woman. What happened?" She's like, "I'm just so much happier. Like I'm confident." Like she's buying clothes for herself, and like the woman I met, like 198, 5'3", she was just like always soaking and like heavy, like not just physically but emotionally, just
Yeah.
heavy. Now she's just so light and just playful. So her
Oh,
transformation has been beautiful, and it's been less than a year working with her.
wow. What a beautiful story to end on. I love those success stories. And that story hasn't ended. That's the beautiful
No.
thing about that is that she's still on her journey and there really is no and there is no end to that journey. She's going to continue on this journey and there'll be some bad days, sure, but she's already, man, the layers she's stacked over the last, year and a half with you, and that's wonderful way to end. I want to end with a bit of a rapid fire session here. Let's talk
Okay.
about who influences you. Who are the influences in your life that help you get through the day, that motivate you, that inspire you, whether it be a podcast, a book, social media, what have you. But yeah, talk to me about your influencers.
First and foremost, Jesus Christ. He set the blueprint. He set the blueprint of how to lead, how to love, how to give, how to serve. And it's
Right.
through his example of how I get to show up, not from a place of contingencies and conditional, but away from abundance and knowing that that's my source. So he's my first and foremost influence. And then second, I listen to Inky Johnson. These guys are always talking about process and discipline. And then Ed Milet, I listen to those
Yeah.
guys, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell. So these are like my influences that I saturate my mind with that
Yes.
allows me to show up as a better leader.
Beautiful. Best book you've read. If you're a reader, I'm not really, but best book you've read in the last 18 months, 2 years.
Outside of the Bible, this book is called Experiencing God. It's shaped my perspective of how to have a relationship with God, and
Mhm.
it's one of the best books. I've reread this book over like 10 times. So Experiencing God.
Okay. Last question. Best piece of advice you could give my listeners today in terms of the first step they can take to getting unstuck.
Every day find clarity, every day make progress.
Yeah. Love that. Let's end on that. Prosper. I wanted to give you an opportunity here. Let's tell us where they can find you. People can find you online, social media, books you've written, podcasts you're on. Let's talk, let's promote you, and let's get the name out there.
100%. So first and foremost, davidbprosper.com is where I live. My upcoming book, Finding Clarity, comes out in August. And then where I live on social media is I am prosper underscore. That's where I live. And I would love to connect with you. So DM me, let's chat and let's connect. And most importantly, let's be clear so that we can do the things that we are created to do.
Love it. Great way to end the show. Prosper, thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed your time on the EOR podcast.
Thank you for having me.